Welcome back, everyone. Along with Nora, this is Dev. If you have stepped into a gym, scrolled through social media, or even just thought about getting in shape recently, you have definitely run into the ultimate fitness holy war. It is the classic showdown cardio versus weights. On one side, you have the runners who think weightlifters are just vanity obsessed mirror gazers. On the other, you have the lifters who think runners are literally running away from their problems. Everyone seems completely convinced their way is the only way. But if we are being honest, most people debating this are not actually doing either consistently. They are just searching for a convincing reason to do nothing at all. Why do you think we are so obsessed with making this an either or choice?
Because it is much easier to debate the perfect routine than it is to actually sweat. But if we strip away the culture war and look at the hard data, the reality is that they are not substitutes for each other. They solve entirely different biological problems. If we look at cardiovascular fitness, it is the single strongest predictor of how long you will live. It is the ultimate shield against all cause mortality. If your goal is simply to not die prematurely, you cannot skip cardio. No amount of heavy lifting can replace what aerobic capacity does for your heart and blood vessels. But there is a massive flip side that the cardio crowd hates to admit. Strength and muscle mass are the ultimate predictors of how well you will live once you pass 40. It is the difference between being able to get out of a low chair at 75 or breaking a hip at 80. Cardio keeps you alive, but strength keeps you functional.
That is a fascinating way to divide it. So essentially, if you are young, cardio keeps you on the map, and as you age, strength ensures you can actually enjoy being on the map. But here is where I want to push back. While that math makes sense on paper, it feels like a bit of a fantasy. In the real world, people do not operate like biological calculators. Nobody has to choose one in a vacuum. They have to choose what they can actually sustain for the next 20 years. If someone is willing to run 4 times a week but absolutely dreads the idea of stepping into a weight room, then running is the optimal choice for them. Not because the science says it is better, but because it is the only one that actually happens. Isn't consistency more important than biological perfection?
I hear that argument all the time, and it sounds incredibly practical, but I think it is actually a bit dangerous. When we say the best exercise is the one you will actually do, we create a loophole. It becomes a permanent license to avoid anything that makes us uncomfortable. Yes, doing something is better than doing nothing, but using that as an excuse to never address your weaknesses is a cop out. If someone avoids strength training because they find the gym intimidating, the solution isn't to tell them to just keep running forever. The solution is to help them figure out why the weight room feels so terrifying and help them overcome that mental barrier. The physical benefit is waiting on the other side of that emotional hurdle.
That is a fair point. We often use comfort as a shield, pretending it is a lifestyle preference when it is actually just anxiety. If we are honest with ourselves, the resistance to trying the other side is rarely about physical capability. It is about the friction of feeling like a beginner again. But I think there is an even deeper layer to this. For most people, this debate isn't actually about physical health or longevity statistics at all. They are not looking at mortality charts when they buy running shoes or lifting straps. They are solving for identity. They want to see themselves and have others see them as a specific kind of person, the marathon runner or the power lifter. The identity is doing all the heavy lifting in their brain, not the science.
I have to admit that hits close to home. When I first started lifting weights, I didn't do it because I read a study on muscle density in elderly populations. I read those studies years later to justify what I was already doing. The truth is, I wanted to feel strong, and I wanted to project a certain kind of capability to the world. We pick the tribe first, and then we go hunting for the data that proves our tribe is the smartest. It is classic confirmation bias dressed up as health consciousness. So the real question we should be asking isn't which exercise is objectively better, but rather, what kind of person are you trying to become?
And That is a much more uncomfortable question, isn't it? Because it forces us to look at fitness as a form of social signaling. Think about it. The runner is signaling discipline, endurance, and a willingness to suffer through long, lonely miles. The lifter is signaling strength, self reliance, and physical presence. Both are performances, both are highly visual. And the irony is that the actual health difference between a dedicated runner and a dedicated lifter is probably much smaller than either camp wants to admit. But acknowledging that would ruin the fun of belonging to the tribe.
That raises a really difficult question. If the tribal identity is the very thing that gets someone off the couch and into motion, is that tribalism actually a bad thing? If believing that running is the only true path to salvation is what keeps you running 4 days a week, maybe you shouldn't look too closely at the strength data. If we shatter the illusion and tell everyone they need a perfectly balanced, multidisciplinary routine, we might just overwhelm them. By trying to give people the perfect, nuanced answer, we might actually cause them to do less exercise, not more.
It is a delicate balance, but I think we underestimate people. We treat the public like they can only handle black and white narratives. We tell them cardio is king or weights are the fountain of youth because we think nuance is too boring to sell. But people are smarter than that. They can handle the truth that their needs change as they age. What they are tired of is the constant marketing warfare where every influencer is selling a single absolute truth. What if the real breakthrough isn't choosing between cardio and weights, but simply refusing to let the fitness industry frame the question as a war?
I think that is where the real growth happens. We have to stop treating these tools as if they are opposing ideologies. They are just instruments in a toolbox. If you want to live a long time, take care of your heart. If you want to move well in that long life, take care of your muscles. And if you just want to feel good today, do whatever brings you joy. But let's stop pretending that our personal preferences are universal scientific truth.
Exactly. It comes down to self awareness. I used to defend the idea of just doing whatever you enjoy. But now I realize that can easily become a trap of convenience. We have to stay curious about why we avoid certain things. If you hate lifting, is it because it is bad for you, or is it because you are afraid of looking foolish in front of people who know what they are doing? The real barrier is almost never physical.
And for me, I have realized that while the math behind training is real, the person asking the question is usually looking for something deeper than a spreadsheet. They are looking for permission to build an identity they can be proud of. We should be honest about the science, but we should also be honest about the theatre of it all. If you run because you love the feeling of the open road, that is wonderful. If you lift because you love the feeling of iron, that is just as valid. Neither path makes you a better person than the other.
So, to everyone listening, here is the question we want you to sit with. What do you actually do when you go to the gym, and how would that change if you stopped pretending it was just about health? If you stripped away the identity and the social signaling, would you still do the same workouts? Would you do more, less, or something completely different? Think about it and be honest with yourself before you try to convince anyone else.
And if this is the kind of wrestle you want more of, you know where the subscribe button is. See you at the next one.